Nostalgia is an interesting factor to examine when taking a look at modern-day tentpole blockbuster franchises, whether due to a love for the original source material and the love fans have for it, or the expectations some audience members might have of wanting to reinvent or reboot the original successes in a way that feels fresh and vibrant. The fan bases attached to notable blockbuster franchises as of late have flocked to film after film, intent on supporting films within the series while also remaining largely optimistic of the outcome for some of these movies. And while this is true across all genres and franchises out there, perhaps there is no larger or more prevalent indicator of this than the Jurassic Park franchise. Ever since Steven Spielberg first adapted Michael Crichton's incredible novel to the big screen in 1993, using state-of-the-art technology, fans have flocked to theaters to see rampant dino action conveyed in such a technology-heavy and stylistically intense way. I myself have fond memories of the original Jurassic Park film. In fact, it was the first PG-13 film I ever saw as a kid, and I thought that made me incredibly cool. And the impact has remained in my mind ever since that first viewing. When examining the film from a modern-day standpoint, however, the thing that strikes me the most about the original Jurassic Park film is how it holds up as a landmark of sci-fi cinema, even when compared to genre tentpoles that have released within the last few years alone. Whether you examine this from a narrative standpoint or when looking at the seamless blend of computer-generated imagery and detailed practical effects work, it's clear that the original Jurassic Park film has stood the test of time by drawing in a large crowd of passionate fans who hold the original film so near and dear to their hearts. So, what happens when a hit film like this makes an indelible landmark upon cinema itself? Sequels are made, of course. Two follow-up films to the original Jurassic Park film were crafted in 1998 and 2001 respectively, managing to capture the intense and cutthroat atmosphere of the first film while also being criticized for their lack of complex story structure or characterization moments. However, there occurred a dramatic shift with the fourth film of the series, which was released in 2015. Instead of continuing the story of rampant dinosaur action inside of the confines of the original successes, this follow-up decided to think bigger, and thus the Jurassic World franchise was created. Now, these Jurassic World films are interesting to examine from a fan standpoint, as it's not entirely clear what they exactly are at first glance. Are they a passionate reboot, or are they a spin-off entirely? Do they attempt to replicate the successes of the original film without standing apart in their own regard, or do they impart nuance and intent in every second of the runtime? I myself actually didn't really mind 2015's Jurassic World, as did most audiences, as it introduced a fresh perspective on this franchise while also retaining some of the bittersweet nostalgia and callbacks for the original film. However, the same cannot be said for the Jurassic World sequels, which were released in 2018 and 2022 respectively. As I'm sure you're likely to hear from diehard fans of this series, these sequels were not good, to put it lightly. Instead of replicating the grounded atmosphere and tone of the original films in a fresh and unique way, these sequels insisted on almost one-upping each other to see which one could get the most over the top and off the rails quicker than the other one. This made for some truly baffling narrative choices at points, with some insane plot reveals that didn't exactly stick a landing, and some cameo and callback moments that felt forced and contrived for lack of a better word. For this reason, it's not exactly far-fetched to say that, as a result of these previous Jurassic World films, fans are not likely to walk into this next installment of the series, Jurassic World Rebirth, with any high expectations whatsoever. It might manage to execute some rampant dinosaur action with some sort of flair, but it remains to be seen whether the narrative or character choices this time around will feel necessary or needed. And this is exactly the same mindset that I walked into my screening with last Monday. As a fan of the original films, I was actually excited to see the original co-screenwriter of the original film, David Knope, return to write this film. And director Gareth Edwards managed to deliver one of the finest Star Wars spin-offs within the last 10 years alone with 2016's Rogue One. This filmmaking combination gave me some semblance of hope, however deep down it might have been, that this film would manage to be good, regardless of franchise expectations. And this is why I am so pleased to report that I walked away from Jurassic World Rebirth with a huge smile on my face. This is it. This is the Jurassic World film to end all Jurassic World films. This movie is what the Jurassic World spin-off franchise should have been from the very beginning. Breaking down the narrative of this film in such a fundamental way, this movie almost feels like a spiritual successor to the original Jurassic Park films in how it executes such a familiar premise in a way that stands apart when examining the film through a 21st century specific lens. I know a lot of this franchise's fans are likely watching this review wanting to know if this film is worth watching before deciding to go see it. And that makes sense after all, considering how burned many fans felt from the previous installments. That is why I will start off my review for this film with this. If you're a fan of Jurassic Park or Jurassic World in general, go see this movie on the big screen. This kind of thoughtful, big budget blockbuster filmmaking was made to be seen on the big screen. If you do not watch this film in theaters, you are doing a disservice to yourself by waiting for it to hit streaming. What Gareth Edwards and his team have achieved here is nothing short short of remarkable within the current state of blockbuster filmmaking. I was not only entertained and enthralled from a critical standpoint, I was entertained and enthralled from a fan standpoint as well. And this interesting phenomenon really speaks to the strengths that this film ultimately works with. Anyone looking for a film that manages to combine memorable elements of the original 3 Jurassic Park films while also standing apart in its own regard will find a lot to love here. This is how I would describe this movie. If you liked the rampant dinosaur action from the first Jurassic Park film, the adventurous dropped in the middle of the wild to fend for ourselves vibe of the second film, and all of the mutated dinosaur strains and abandoned research facilities of the third film, this is going to be a hit for you. By crafting a film that feels full of love and admiration for the source material while also never seeming like a blatant parody or ripoff, Edwards has delivered the Jurassic Park film that fans have been begging for years. It's hard to even describe how good this installment is in the series. This is by far the best Jurassic film since the third installment released in 2001. And this is why I say that if you are a fan of this franchise in any way, shape, or form, you owe it to yourself to see this film in theaters as soon as possible. Jurassic World Rebirth follows Zora Bennett, played by Scarlett Johansson, who is a covert operative recruited by pharmaceutical executive Martin Krebs, played by Rupert Friend, journeyed to the island of Isle St. Hubert within the Atlantic Ocean to retain samples of dinosaur blood that could be used to study a new form of medicine to help heart disease in humans. Along for the ride are Dr. Henry Loomis, played by Jonathan Bailey, a paleontologist who seems to have his own ideas on what to do with the dinosaur blood, and mission leader Duncan Kincaid, played by Oscar winner Mahershala Ali. And in classic Jurassic Park fashion, once they arrive on the island, they are greeted by bloodthirsty monsters from a different era entirely, who view the new human guests with a form of curiosity and hunger. The remaining members of the team must work to get word out to the mainland before time runs out, and that timer in question is a horde of hungry dinosaurs looking to get their next meal. When examining Jurassic World Rebirth from a superficial lens, the film might not appear to be much more than the original Jurassic Park films in terms of premise itself. A group of humans, chief among them scientists and paleontologists, journey to an island where dinosaurs have been cloned and must fight to survive in a bloodthirsty world where new surprises await them. Yet, the reason why Jurassic World Rebirth manages to succeed and rises above the rest of the recent installments in this series is how it translates this derivative premise into a plot that executes these thematic similarities with heart and a profound sense of earnestness. I mean, this just feels like a film that was made and crafted by someone with clear love and appreciation for this franchise. Every second of this film is devoted to capturing that same thrilling and intense atmosphere that was notably absent from the previous Jurassic World installments, and captures a sense of nostalgia from the original films whenever falling into a self-trap. This is due in part to the decision to adapt scenes directly from Michael Crichton's original novel that were notably absent from the original film. The major differences between Crichton's novel and Spielberg's film are too vast to cover within this specific review video, but as someone who has read the original novel and watched the original film, I am able to appreciate them in their own specific rights as they're very different properties. However, there were also distinct scenes from the original novel that were never adapted to the original film adaptation, either out of a necessity to trim up the story or some other reason. However, within this film, both Edwards and Nope have decided to adapt deleted scenes from the original novel with such a vibrant and dramatic flourish, instilling a sense of authenticity and remaining different from the original film, while also retaining a tone that feels quite similar due to the filmmakers imparting Crichton's original thematic content. I'm not going to spoil these specific moments here in this review, as they are some of the best moments of both this film and Crichton's original novel, but all I'll say is when you see these moments, you'll know. And that goes for all of the surprises in store for this film, of which there are many. When leading a tentpole franchise such as Jurassic Park, you have to cast leads that are both charismatic and charming while also underlying the capability to grab the action moments and lean heavily into their influence, which is what both Scarlett Johansson and Jonathan Bailey do here in spades. Both are perfectly cast here, instilling specific nuances and flares into their characters that make them feel both wholly unique and fleshed out within the runtime. Mahershala Ali also delivers a surprisingly complex and nuanced performance alongside them, especially for a blockbuster film of this caliber. Leaning heavily into the comedic and dramatic elements of the story, Ali crafts such a complex and vibrant figure in Duncan that makes audiences empathize with and understand him on such a fundamental level. Gareth Edwards also knows how to frame a film itself, because when I say this is perhaps one of the most vibrant and visually enthralling blockbuster films within the last few years alone, I mean it. The cinematography and color grading are both pitch perfect, highlighting deep tones and bright hues with such a steady hand. The camera work and framing make these towering creatures feel almost picturesque and lyrical, instilling a rare and mesmerizing beauty in moments where they almost appear to leap off the screen. The music score from Alexandre Desplat is also a high point here as well, as it does transport you into the setting with ease, but even a step further than that, it also sounds reminiscent and nostalgic and very similar to John Williams' original movie score. And this extends just beyond the bombastic main theme and into the smaller musical motifs throughout the film as well, which is so nostalgic and so touching for fans of this franchise. In fact, so much of the craft of this film just feels plucked out of the original in such a fresh and invigorating way. As mentioned before, the previous Jurassic World films lack the prevalent sense of unease and tension that made these dinosaurs so prevalent and terrifying in the original films, which is why it's such a high mark on this film that this installment brings back that sense of adrenaline with ease. The dinosaurs here feel like a threat again. They don't feel over the top like other installments, which is exactly what you want from a film such as this. The moments of claustrophobia and panic that the characters feel are instilled and conveyed perfectly in moments of tense confrontation. In this way, the film is simply a blast, to put it lightly. The audience never feels safe for the entirety of the runtime. Instead, we feel pulled into the thick of action ourselves, left scrambling just as the characters are, as Edwards and his team use immersive filmmaking techniques to make these creatures seem real and prevalent. There are so many great and fun additions to the dinosaur lineup with this installment, with terrifying results in each category. These dinos are ruthless, and it shows. Yet, amid all of the non-stop dinosaur action, one of the elements that truly holds Jurassic World Rebirth back as a film at the end of the day is how the middle act just drags. The opening and closing of this film are chock full of non-stop thrills and action-oriented sequences, yet the middle of the film turns into a portion where the dinosaurs appear less frequently, and the character drama takes center stage, which is disappointing to see in a film that feels like it has to convey every specific nuance in terms of characterization in a way that audiences can understand. This portion of the film feels overdone in every sense of the word, with weak character dynamics taking center stage, and the focus shifting towards more of a personal and reflective tone, which has the potential to be great, but falters here nonetheless. I also found myself not really loving Rupert Friend's character in this film, as he's a great actor, but his purpose as a character in this film seemed unclear until the last act of the film, and even that character reveal felt half-baked and underdeveloped at best. And on a point of personal criticism, I also dislike how the entire film relies on an overabundance of computer-generated imagery over any real or prevalent practical effects work, which, to be fair, is a complaint that I have about many movies within the blockbuster sphere over the last few years. Part of what made the original Jurassic Park film so memorable was that seamless blend of CGI and practical effects as mentioned, as it heightened the sense of realism within the film by allowing characters to directly interact with these dinosaurs and gave the audience the opportunity to suspend their disbelief. But alas here, this is not the case, as the film falls into the similar trap of not just the other Jurassic World films but so many other blockbuster releases as of late by relying too heavily on CGI imagery and effects work for the interactions with dinosaurs here, which ultimately hurts the film because while these creatures might seem huge and prevalent on the screen, they also don't feel as real as they could. Whereas the first few films in this franchise used a seamless mix of the two to heighten realism, it's quite noticeable here that the characters here are interacting with empty space essentially that has been digitally altered to include dinosaurs, and it doesn't seem like there's any real or tangible practical element to interact with. Again, don't worry, you'll still get all of that dinosaur action that fans of this series crave and love. And really such an element is only noticeable to critics and film lovers like myself who've watched and analyzed these films over the course of years, but it's also really something to contemplate and think about within the context of recent modern day filmmaking itself. Regardless, this does not distract from how great of an overall package Jurassic World Rebirth truly is. Overall, the film is as entertaining, enthralling, and genuinely thrilling as many of the other entries in this franchise, retaining nostalgia at key points to satisfy series diehards, while also instilling a unique angle and flair onto this property that make this entry stand out. Amid all the artistic flair and originality that Gareth Edwards and his team bring to this film, it's also just such a blast from start to finish. As mentioned at the beginning of this review, this is a theater-worthy experience in every sense of the word. Go see this on the biggest screen possible with a crowd of friends and prepare to experience something wholly rousing and engaging in the blockbuster format. Amid all of the thoughts and feelings that I walked away from this film with, the resounding point that truly landed the most in terms of impact is how this film actually gave me hope for mainstream blockbusters again. If something this artistic and creative while also remaining completely fun and enthralling can be released within the mainstream studio system, I have hope that future blockbusters will take note and instill their own unique creative flair on their properties to immense effect. This film is really one of the reasons why I love going to the movies, and I can't wait for audiences everywhere to discover this fast-paced and entertaining world on July 2nd. That's why I'm giving Jurassic World Rebirth a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Jurassic World Rebirth hits theaters everywhere this Wednesday, July 2nd. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this review on my channel. If you're new around here and you like the content you see, don't forget to click that subscribe button down below, like the video, and turn on push notifications. Also, leave comment suggestions down below for future video, essay, and review topics. With that being said, until next time, this is Mitchell signing off. Peace out.